Wheel of Time. Amazon adapting the Robert Jordan novel series as their big epic fantasy. Um, Amazon's got Lord of the Rings coming next year, so in a
Mhm.
way, this kind of feels like a we want this to be Game of Thrones. We're gonna put money into this, but it's not the one necessarily. It's not the highest stakes for them. But
Mm.
uh, Rafe Judkins is the showrunner. We got a couple episodes dropped, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
3 episodes are out on Amazon Prime Video, and it'll be 8-episode season concluding on Christmas Eve, and it's already been renewed for a second season, which is currently in production. And like you said, Amazon Studios' first but not last attempt at having a dominant fantasy IP in the wake of Game of Thrones. But Lord of the Rings is coming from them next year. The Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon, is coming from HBO next year. So maybe the window is closing. I don't know. But the Wheel of Time is finally here. It's been something that they've tried to adapt in one form or another. Various people, various companies for a long time. This is a uh, just as great selling fantasy series as The Song of Ice and Fire is Game of Thrones. It's just as popular on the book side of things, and even started before Game of Thrones. But I think culturally, Thrones kind of like beat them to the punch in a certain sense. And hearing stuff about breaking the wheel in the Wheel of Time show, it's like, you might have invented that technically on the literary side of things, but when I hear someone say break the wheel, I think of like Cersei Lannister or Tywin or Tyrion or something.
yep, 100%. So we're only gonna be talking about the first episode. Um, Man, I don't know. I guess like my thought on this, it follows Rosamund Pike, who's plays Moraine, I believe is the way you
Yeah.
pronounce the name.
Our
Who's a
Gandalf stand-in.
yeah, basically like a witch wizard character who is trying to find the young adult who is
Mm,
going to be what the dragon, the reincarnation
yes.
of the dragon.
So they
I mean,
don't like fuck up the world at the end of time. It's like a cyclical prophetic thing, the usual fantasy tropes and whatnot.
yeah, and so you got Rosamund Pike, running around, using her magic powers
Mm,
to fight off these orc stand-in
yes.
uh, creatures.
The
Uh,
Trollocs.
yeah, you have Priyanka Bose being pushed into a river. That was her, right? Priyanka, or was
Think
she?
so.
Yeah. Um,
Right in the beginning.
so you got some exciting stuff happening here and there. It just didn't grab me, and I think I just felt very like I don't know if it was the execution or if it was just the story overall didn't grab
Mm.
me, but I kind of left being like, "There's a lot going on here." I don't know if any of it was particularly well done, and I feel like it just is a miss for me. Well, how did you feel though?
Yeah, watching the pilot, I was left with thinking, oh, this could be cool. I think it could be cool, but I don't think it's super compelling as a pilot. Be, because like it's hard, right? Like you have all these young characters, these 4 young characters who go on this journey with Rosamund Pike and her like warrior buddy, right? And you kind of like see where it's going, right? They're going to go on this journey, and you have this battle in this first episode, a pretty protracted, long action scene with the Trollocs attacking the Twin Rivers
Way
home they
too long.
have, and I thought it was actually pretty solid from an action standpoint, but I think it's perhaps misjudged to have that be our like inciting conflict because we don't know who his people are yet. We're still learning all the words. You're getting a lot thrown at you early on, which I respect. I like that they're just throwing us in with the lore, pick it up as you go along. Game of Thrones does the same thing. That's how the books work too. But I couldn't help but see like, oh, I see the DNA of Lord of the Rings. I see the TV side DNA from Game of Thrones a little bit, and it's not necessarily fair to just immediately compare their work to its peers, but when you're deciding if you want to invest in something, I feel like it comes up. They shot this in Prague. I think it looks pretty nice. I thought the river set looked good. From what I understand from the advanced reviews, the critics have seen 6 of the episodes. It continues to look nice, but I think you got to really be like interested in like the appeal of this world. A world where only the women uh, can do magic.
Wield this power. Yeah.
You know, um, you have to be interested, I think, in learning more about that to want to go, because I think as like a TV example of TV, it doesn't necessarily like immediately compel you. In a sense, I had very similar feelings watching this as I did watching The Witcher season 1 on Netflix, in which I
Mm.
watched half of that first season before bowing out. So, I think this will do decently for people that are interested in like fantasy, and book fans certainly have wanted this for a long time. Again, it has a lot of fans, but I think it's a bit of a tougher sell for people that aren't kind of already in the bag for something like this.
Yeah. I do think for me, like really throwing you into like the fantasy like lore and like all like the lingo and stuff was a bit of like I don't know if turn off is the right word, but just kind of was like, okay. I can sit with this, but I didn't find Rosamund Pike to be particularly like, I don't know, enthusiastic. Maybe is the right
Hmm.
word.
Which we know
Maybe
she
her.
has in her, but yeah, the writing wasn't setting her up for it.
I thought the CGI kind of sucked too. Like when she's using all her powers and like
Hmm.
the stuff swirling around. Really didn't think that came like looked that great.
I actually
Um,
enjoyed it just because it was so much brighter than the other action, which was happening at night, so it was dark.
that's true.
Like it was blue. I
Yeah,
was like, oh, this is appealing
like
to the
catchy.
eye because it's different.
Yeah, and I think overall for me, like I was trying to think about like what made Game of Thrones something that people could get into, and I'll even admit like at first with Thrones, like it was hard for me to get into that as well. So maybe fantasy just is not my
Yeah,
genre.
you're just a fool in the beginning. I was on from the jump.
You were. I think what made Thrones something a lot of people could get into, maybe even people that aren't big fantasy fans, is it starts off right away with the White Walkers, but then they're kind of sidelined for a while, and it's a pretty straightforward like a bunch of people trying to take power and like all this infighting, and that is like a pretty straightforward premise that can suck people in, and then you can start to introduce these like kind of out there fantasy elements as you go. I don't think the dragons like if that to me doesn't really scream like out there fantasy. Things like magic powers, the many faced gods, White Walkers, zombies, basically like that sort of stuff's a little more out there. And so I think when you throw a lot of people right in the deep end with this fantasy stuff without there being maybe more of a premise to like bite onto that's not all fantasy, it becomes I think a little bit more difficult. That's at least like where my brain got to in understanding why I might have liked Thrones more than this. Um, but we'll see. I mean, I I don't think this is it. I don't think this is going to be the next Game of Thrones. My money would be on either Lord of the Rings or House of Dragon next year. But
Right, of course.
do you want to finish this? You want to watch all eight?
I'm definitely going to give it at least a little bit more time, because that's the thing. It's right. Thrones had impeccable writing. That's what can bring
Mm.
people in. You learn the characters, you appreciate the characters, things make sense, right? This pilot, like there was no chance for anything to like, happen in that regard. Now, if the writing doesn't pick up too much, or hopefully not get a sense of wheel spinning on the journey, that'd be awfully, unfortunate if that was to happen. But I want to give the world a little bit more time, because I think the potential, like you said, right, like setting it up, this Trolloc attack, this Dark One bad guy, unseen there, right? They might not actually come into play all that much, and it might not be super like good versus evil end of the world all the time. And yeah, there'll be some magic, but I'm willing to see where that goes a little bit. It's funny though, like there's been a lot of attempts like this recently, right? Like the HBO had the Nevers. We didn't stick with that, and it doesn't seem like anyone did. his Dark Materials, Apple's Foundation, which I definitely still liked. Brave New World and Peacock. There's been so many things, and it's like, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we kind of know what the best ones are probably going to be because we just can trust the execution, and that's House of the Dragon, we assume, and hopefully Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings was such an investment for Amazon. They spent 10 million episode on Wheel of Time. That's really substantial. That's more than Game of Thrones first season was costing
Insane.
an episode. It's not as much as the last season of Game of Thrones either, but it's not nothing. Um, so I'm gonna give it at least a little bit more time. See what happens.
Well, maybe we'll be checking back in. Drop us your thoughts if you all like it and you comment enough, like enough. Maybe we'll give the people what they want.